getting to the top and staying at the top are two very different challenges. You often see many people reach the top of their industry, the top of endeavour that they've been chasing for a very long time. Most often they are pushed towards this goal, they are pushed towards achieving this goal. And it's often to be the case of, well, look at me, I achieved this goal, especially when it comes to financial success or some type of status or achieving something that your parents wanted you to achieve. And then things kind of completely fall off, the wheels fall off, things spiral out of control. And you see this most common within athletes, high performers, celebrities, CEOs, these types of people. And I think especially when I've seen it in sports, you see things go very downhill. If you look at the likes of football players, the names I could think of that come to mind straight away, you see the likes of Paul Pogba, Robinho, Marcus Rashford, James Rodriguez. These are all players over the last decade or so who have had very high ceilings, a lot of talent within these players. They're highly talented players, and they've probably achieved a certain level of success, a higher level of success than you and I. And they've kind of reached this level, and then they've kind of been like, you know what, I don't really want to push on to a high level. Like, a lot of these players could have played at a completely different level to, the level they ended up playing at. And that's quite a sad thing to think, that some very talented footballers, athletes, whoever it may be, but for this case, talented footballers didn't reach their potential because of their attitude, because of their mindset, because of their ego got in the way of them achieving their true potential and fulfilling that, and being the best version of themselves at the end of their day. Because it's quite clear from anyone would say that these people have a lot higher ceiling than they did. And you think about all they would have sacrificed in their younger life. Obviously, some people are naturally more talented. All of these players, athletes, they are born with a certain gift that you and I probably don't possess. Hence, they are playing at a high level, and I'm here, and you're watching this video. We are not at that level, and that's just how it is. And despite being given this gift, they would have had to have worked extremely hard every single day. The things that would have got them there would have been resilience, consistency, optimism, pure hard work, just day in, day out. That being their sole kind of a laser focus on achieving this goal, becoming a footballer, becoming an athlete, becoming a movie star, whatever it may be, that all of these people who achieved a very kind of unprecedented amount of success at a very young age have become. They've achieved this, which is just not natural. You see it a lot of the time with, singers, superstars in that regard that have just out the water. They've completely blown everything out the water. You saw it with someone like Justin Bieber becoming very renowned for 17, 18 years old, making millions of pounds. That doesn't happen to everyday people at all. Most 18-year-olds, are fucking around. They don't have a clue what they're doing. They have no idea, and they'll never, there's just such a small pool of people who will ever be in that level at any age of their life. And to have it at that age, when you're lacking life experience, you're lacking kind of people around you that are on that same wavelength, they're just not there. And for almost every single person who reaches a very high level of success, whatever that may be, financial status, high performance in their endeavour, it's going to be very difficult for you to navigate life from there on in. And this is not something that you should think, you should beat yourself up about, because naturally that is going to come to you because you don't have that experience. You've only been, around probably less than 20 years if you were achieving something within your teens, which is pretty much going to be an athlete. That's the only kind of route that you're going to achieve an unprecedented amount of success, or like I say, you kind of a singer, a rapper, one of those types of kind of industries. They're the only people that are really achieving that at a very young age. And traits that they are going to change, like I say, over time. When you have achieved that certain level of success, you're going to be like, okay, well, I've made it now, haven't I? I don't need to keep work. I don't need to be that same person that I once was when I was putting in hours and hours on end to achieve this goal. And yeah, quite right so that you would think that, because it's going to be very hard for you once you've achieved that major goal. Well, you'll be like, well, I've made millions, I'm a massive name in my industry. Anything now is only going to kind of be, a small kind of bonus on top of that. And it's very hard for me to kind of create that kind of, mindset, that vision that I once had, because I basically achieved it. And it's hard for me to kind of see, what is the next level of this. But that is, again, where people let themselves down, is kind of having those values and stuff that they work towards every single day, of thinking, I've got to achieve this goal. And you have to think, okay, I've done this, but do I want to maintain this? Do I want to be one of a generation, one of a lifetime? Those types of people who keep pushing on regardless. The more success they have, the more hungry they become. The more they kind of have that humility to be like, yeah, I may have achieved a lot of financial success, I may have a lot of status, I may have a lot of businesses, I may have a world record in whatever sport, in whatever, the Olympics, whatever it may be. They keep going on, and that's something that's going to separate, pretty much 99% of people compared to 1% of people. And you can look at this in kind of a recent sporting scenario. So PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, as they're known, recently won the Champions League, as I'm sure many of you will know this. And what happened? What changed at PSG? Because this was a team that, if you are not familiar with their history, they had a history of spending a lot of money on kind of well-renowned stars, the likes of Messi, Neymar, Mbappe. The list could go on and on and on. The amount of money they've spent over the last 10 years is absolutely staggering for this one big goal of winning the Champions League. The greatest prize in European football is that of winning the Champions League. And they went time and time again, spent more and more money, and thought, this is the answer. When we get Messi, when we get Mbappe, when we got Neymar, all of them together, that is when we're going to win the Champions League. And it didn't happen. They had a go 2-3 years, and it just same results: semi-final, quarterfinals, all of these types of things. They didn't get there. They didn't get over the line. And a lot of this, which a lot of people are saying now, is that kind of mentality, that attitude, that mindset of thinking, I'm better than this. I've got to a certain level now. I am this guy, and I don't really need to try. I don't need to work as hard as a lot of people who I'm playing up against, who are working harder than them, and that is why they are winning these football games. And that all stems down from the mindset and mentality of these players, that they think they are too good compared to what they actually are. And you saw this team, this PSG side that came across this year, they very much were drilled the mindset of, you are not better than anyone here. You're just a normal person. And you saw this from the head coach, Luis Enrique, who made that very clear to the players. He was like, you guys are just normal people. The people that actually are special are people that save lives. We are just very talented and fortunate people to get paid a lot of money for what we do. And that is it. And it clearly reminded them. They brought in a lot of fresh, young, hungry players who had a point to prove. And that's what they did. They won it with ease. They absolutely, dominated the final. They won 5-0 in the end. And now they have achieved that big goal. What will happen next? Time will tell. But hopefully that will be a lesson to the club. Hopefully that will be a lesson to football and sport as a whole. And hopefully to you to kind of think, what? That was the difference. You can look at this at a smaller scale and think, okay, well, these guys are multi-million pound, athletes with all the status, I can't compare, me, I'm just an everyday guy who has a normal job, family man, all of this types of stuff. Yes, you can. Of course, they're on completely different levels of what you're comparing it to, but it still has a lot of relevance to everyday life, because you see it all the time. And especially you see this in a lot of guys who may attract a woman into their life, that big goal that they've been looking for, because we all know that a lot of young men, they'd love a girlfriend, they'd love that in their life. And they might actually go and achieve that after a couple of years of hard work, of going into the gym, building themselves up as a person, to that person they become. Maybe they achieve a certain amount of financial success, a certain amount of success in their career, whatever it may be. They're a lot better version of themselves. You get the point overall. And they attract this woman into their life who's a decent woman, and they think, that's it now. I don't need to try anymore. I'm not going to go to the gym anymore. I'm not going to try keep up my appearance. You know what? I'm going to have a few beers and stuff for the weekends. I'm going to get into that more, go out with the boys. I'm on 30, 40, 50k a year. I'm not really bothered about pursuing my career anymore. I'm quite comfy. This job's quite easy. I get perks and stuff. I'm not going to bother pushing on anymore. They lose all of that and they think, you know what, I've cashed my chips, I'm happy. And people from the outside be like, just let him off, this guy's happy, he's carefree, he's got his wife, he's got his kids and all of that. But I don't think they are. I don't think people like this are genuinely happy. They are like caged animals and they are just on the wrong path. Because for me, it's quite clear that life is the key to happiness and fulfillment is making progress in every area of our life throughout life, and they are the happiest people. If you look at the data, you look at the science, you go out and speak to people, it's the people, especially around this age, when you have so much of your life ahead of you. I'm 24 myself, and people around me, and even you can't say people at 40 and 50 don't, because they have a lot of time ahead. And they would love to make a lot of progress. I can assure you they would be far more fulfilled if they were being purposeful in their life and chasing goals and improving on themselves in all areas of life, or at least a few areas of their life, instead of being this kind of lethargic man who's in the house a lot, doesn't really have much going on. He's just kind of got fat, lazy, out of shape, and these stuff you might say is external, it shouldn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter too much, if you are happy with yourself, but I genuinely think a lot of people aren't, and it's all of a front, and that you want to keep pushing for your personal pride more than anything. I'm not saying to, attract even more women into your life and not knowing when enough is enough. You want to keep it for yourself, and it can be whatever it may be, but you've got to keep pushing on in all areas of your life and think, I'm still learning, I've got a lot to learn, I'm definitely not the finished article, and you should never think you are. I don't think I'll ever be the finished article. However old I get, life is a journey, it's always one big lesson. And you have to have that mentality and not think you're better than anyone else. You not think that because you've achieved some success, and even if you've achieved success in your own terms, in all of the areas of life that a lot of people would want to succeed in, whether that be your career, financially, relationships, fitness, mental health, physical health, all of these types of things, you think, I'm absolutely killing it in all areas of life. It doesn't matter. Just keep going. Just keep pushing on and think, okay, what can I learn? How can I improve that a little bit more and help other people along the journey? If you feel like, well, I'm at this level now and maybe I need to maintain it, but have that humility to at least help other people. And like I say, the overarching message of this video is to remember what got you there in the first place, and going kind of back to that sports kind of analogy. There's a message that I love, this quote that I found a few weeks ago, is that if you play for the badge on the front of your top, they'll remember the name on the back of it. And that's something that obviously is in a sports case, especially in a football team, that is very helpful for you to kind of remember. Even if you're playing at a lot lower level, that would be like a great kind of thing to think. Be like, what, if I play for this badge, if I give 100% in everything I do on the pitch, then people are going to remember this name. And it's so true. You think of the legends of a club, they are never forgotten. And you could do this for yourself. Just think of that. Just play in life for yourself. Do the things that will make you proud. And people around the world, especially and most importantly yourself, you will be remembered for doing those things and having that humility. And yeah, hopefully this video has been insightful for you. And I think it's a big problem in this era. I think a lot of people are very egotistical, and I think even on a smaller scale you kind of see people that from the outside especially, they're not even achieved anything in their life. They might just work a normal job. For whatever reason, they're very egotistical. They don't have a lot of humility. I think that's a trait that a lot of people have lost. You see it in younger people, and you see it even more so probably in 40, 50-year-old people. They don't have a lot of humility. I don't think they know best, and it's not a positive trait whatsoever. I think it's a very low trait. But I think if more people can kind of adopt this mentality, it'll be a great thing for mankind. It'll be a great thing for all of us to be like, what, I don't know it all. I'm going to keep working hard, or just as hard and harder than I ever did before, to make sure that I maintain myself at this high level and make sure that I stay there. And for yourself, that's the most important thing you can do. So if this video has been insightful, then please leave a like and subscribe. If you need any more guidance on this issue or anything else to do with your mindset or improving your life, happiness, fulfillment, whatever it may be, my one-to-one personal coaching link will be in the description below. I'll see you in the next video now. Take care.